Hello, it is great to be here. Please use the hashtag #GettingToAlpha if you want to tweet about this. Any questions or comments during the presentation? Today I'm going to start with a short introduction. Then we'll get right into the 7 habits that characterize breakthrough innovators, followed by 3 practical shortcuts that you can use right away today to turbocharge your design process. How many of you are entrepreneurs, innovators, makers? You already know that everything you do starts with a hunch. You get an exciting idea you want to explore. There's a hot market area you want to pursue. You get a vision for a product or game or app or service that you're just itching to build. But until you've developed and tested it, your idea is just a hypothesis. How do you know if today's idea is the right one to pursue? I'm Amy Jo Kim. I'm a game and product designer who specializes in early stage innovation. At Shufflebrain, we've had the pleasure of working with many great companies and teams, all of them trying to build something new and innovative. Some were a lot more successful than others. A handful of our early stage clients became genre-defining hits. What set those breakthrough innovations apart? Can we identify habits, beliefs, behaviors that reliably lead to better, smarter, and faster innovation? I think we can, and today I'm going to share with you the 7 habits of teams who produce successful breakthrough innovations. And I'm talking about teams because innovation is a team sport. The first habit is foundational. Think like a scientist. Successful innovations start off with small, iterative experiments designed to answer the most important questions. This meshes well with a lean startup approach, where the path to success involves moving quickly through the build, measure, learn cycle. The most striking pattern shared by every successful innovation I've ever worked on is a willingness to ask the hard, important questions up front and to seek the answers experimentally. For instance, The Sims spent years experimenting with different approaches to bringing a virtual dollhouse to life, finally settling on a design after much testing that became the highest-grossing PC franchise of all time. The early team at eBay experimented with a variety of social systems designed to build trust among buyers and sellers. This was at a time when online shopping was still a niche activity. The rock band team faced a daunting challenge. Could non-musicians playing plastic instruments make music together and feel like a band? Answering that question was fundamental. We all knew that without a resounding yes, nothing else mattered. The Covet fashion team had created several mobile fashion games, and then they hit a wall. To create a breakthrough hit and reach a broader audience, they needed a different approach. Using this disciplined, experimental, iterative approach, the team created CrowdStar's biggest success to date. The team behind Happify knew firsthand the power and efficacy of science-based happiness exercises. What they did not know was whether people would pay for a guided happiness exercises within a convenient game-like digital service. The second habit characterizes how successful innovations actually get started by focusing on delighting a small, passionate group of early adopters. Now, your early adopters are not always going to look like Segway riding rock stars. Your job is to recognize the right early adopters specifically for your product. To innovate successfully, you need to find and delight a handful of people who are looking for what you're offering and who will put up with cost, inconvenience, and ridicule to use your product because it solves a problem or meets some deep need that they have. That's what an early adopter is. Have you ever heard of Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore? Anybody read that book? That's a great and influential marketing book, and it talked about the difficulty of marketing innovative products to a mass market. This book opened a lot of people's eyes, including myself, to the key differences between early adopters and the early majority. What's less well known is that Moore's book was based on work done 3 decades earlier by Everett Rogers called Innovation Diffusion Theory. Look it up online. It's really important for entrepreneurs to know about. This is a data-driven model of how new products spread through existing communities. Your early adopters are crucial to focus on, and they add value in numerous ways. For example, at eBay, Pierre Omidyar was the original customer support rep for the service. And it was actually during a support call that an early user came up with the idea for eBay's reputation system, the crown jewel of that product. Will Wright, the genius game designer behind The Sims, cultivated relationships with an active and highly creative group of superfans who provided a rich source of ideas, user testing, and content creation long before the game ever shipped. The Rock Band team knew that social dynamics would make or break our ambitious multiplayer music game. So we focused on understanding the needs and habits of avid social gamers and non-musicians, which was key to creating that massive crossover hit. The third habit, learning early about customer needs and habits, can have a dramatic impact on your uptake and adoption. Too often, we assume that people will adopt a new habit to use our product or play our game. But it's much, much smarter to embed your experience in a habit that already exists. And in order to do that, you need to learn about your customers first before you build anything. If you have the time and opportunity, interviewing people in the field, meaning where they live, work, and play, is a great way to understand more about their habits and needs. Early in the Rock Band project, we interviewed dozens of casual gamers and social gamers, and we gained key early insights that helped to shape that game. You can use speed interviews to surface patterns and insights. I'll be talking more about speed interviews later. Habit number 4 is to create a culture of iterative testing. If you embrace lean methods and you want to set your team up for success, create this culture of quick, iterative, high-learning play testing within your team and organization. Successful innovators are tinkerers and experimenters. They test and refine many ideas. They don't fall in love with any one idea. And they include their customers in an iterative feedback loop right from the beginning. In practice, setting up a regular rhythm usually gets the best results because it means that your testing will actually happen. For instance, on Covet Fashion, we set up weekly interviews with fashionable young women, gamers and non-gamers alike, very early in the product. We then used those sessions to test our early ideas before we had built or designed a thing. And then later on, once we had a playable game, we used it to shape and test our core systems and our UX. Similarly, the Sims team developed a Friday playtest within the team right from the start, and then slowly grew those regular tests to include the Max's Studio, friends and family, and then finally, the enthusiastic content-creating fan community I mentioned earlier. The 5th habit builds on the previous ones. Once you've gotten in touch with passionate early customers, giving them an easy way to stay connected to you and to each other is a very smart and high-leverage move. A well-run customer feedback community delivers ongoing value by keeping you engaged with these passionate customers, and even more so, by giving you a way to listen in as your customers talk to each other about your product. In practice, that often ends up being even more valuable than the direct contact you have with your customers. Every breakthrough innovation I've ever worked on managed to create and leverage an early adopter community very early on. Happify, for example, invited select early customers, the ones we had identified through interviews and testing, into a private Facebook group, and then kept things alive in that group with daily posts polls, and tidbits from the development pipeline. This dramatically sped up Happify's ability to iterate quickly. Don't make the rookie mistake of lumping all your customers together into one big undifferentiated community. As your community grows, consider keeping those early adopters in their own area and then creating new community or even new multiple vertical communities that can keep the right people talking to each other. You can create a new gathering place using, say, Slack or any number of places, and get feedback from later customers or different verticals. Always keep in mind that you don't just want to talk to the customers, you want to create an environment where they're comfortable talking to each other. This brings us to one of the most critical and least understood habits of successful innovators. Test and tune the most important part of your customer experience first. Seems straightforward, but it's amazing how often people don't do this. So a core loop is a gaming concept that describes the interlocking activities, progress markers, and feedback systems that a player experiences during a gaming session. As game designer Dan Cook says, skill building and learning are an essential part of what actually makes games fun. When you're validating your product ideas, be careful not to fall into the trap of testing your marketing message and thinking that you validated your core loop. A fake landing page, or a Kickstarter campaign for that matter, will help you shape your marketing message and get a sense for how many people are actually interested in that topic. But what it's not going to do is help you shape or test your core product experience. An operant conditioning loop, or Skinner box, such as the habit loop from the Power of Habit book, or the hooked model that Nirial is putting out there. Those are great, and they get you closer to a core loop because there's feedback and rewards and triggers. What's completely missing from this approach, a behavioral operant conditioning approach, is any sense of skill building or personal empowerment or making the person using your software more awesome. Skinner boxes and operant conditioning loops absolutely can shape behavior. Anybody who's ever spent time at a slot machine can attest to that. But they will never lead you to player delight or true long-term engagement. Just won't happen. For that, you need skill building. People fundamentally enjoy getting better at something they care about. The process of learning and mastery is the thing that's deeply and intrinsically motivating. So to create a robust core loop, you want to combine compelling feedback with the skill-building power of games. This is not about mechanics, points, badges, or levels. This is about something much more fundamental, making the customer or the player better than they were. How you do that is to start with creating repeatable, engaging activities that are triggered by some existing internal or situational urge or need. You then build a feedback loop to promote learning and skill building. And you close that loop by giving people some compelling and meaningful reasons to return and the cues to remind them. It's a similar approach, but fundamentally different point of view about how you create a great experience. Breakthrough innovations spend a lot of time up front getting that core loop right. You don't see that work. Only the people who are on the development team see that work. For instance, the Rock Band team created a war room at Harmonix Studios with paper up on the windows so nobody could see us. And for 6 months, all we did was test and tune very early versions of the game and the instruments. We didn't add any features, polish, or progression systems, all the stuff that gamifiers think of first. We didn't add that until much later, once we had the feel of that early play system right. Although it's much simpler, Twitter's core loop has the same basic dynamics. I want to show you that this isn't just about gaming. It's about any compelling product. So let's take a look at that. The engaging activities that fuel the loop are reading and responding to updates, checking out trends, as we heard about. Clearly, checking out trends is very interesting. Maybe finding some new people to follow. Feedback and progress light the way through stats and particularly through notifications. If the game that you're playing on Twitter is to write compelling updates that other people find interesting, this is feedback and progress against that goal. And then lastly, the triggers and investment that pull you back. If you have notifications turned on, it'll happen. But just seeing the number of followers growing is very powerful. It makes it harder to walk away from, and it drives your sense of investment in the platform. The seventh habit, creating a path to mastery, is your golden key for building long-term engagement. This is something that's completely missing from Skinner box, operant conditioning loop approaches. And it really is the thing that's going to keep your very best players and customers sticking around. Teams who produce breakthrough innovations recognize the importance of early adopters, and then they go beyond that. They find ways to co-create with them, to empower them, to learn from them, and to leverage their skills, knowledge, and passions to help bring the product to life. You can engage all of your customers with progressive skill building using a technique or framework like this framework here, which is called the player's journey. But you'll only engage your best customers, your early adopters, enthusiasts, your passionate advocates, by giving them the tools, powers, and rewards of mastery. More than anything, what these people want is impact. It's not about status, and it's not about rewards. It's about having an impact and seeing that you matter. One simple way to do this is to test early mock-ups and ideas with your early customer community, as Happify did regularly. You'll get valuable feedback, and your early customers will feel special and important. It's a win-win thing. For Rock Band, the mastery systems we built were around the rock and roll fantasies of social gamers and non-musicians, not around what musicians wanted. That was something the team absorbed through the early interviews and testing that I mentioned earlier. Covet Fashion was created from the ground up around rating systems that would naturally bubble up true fashion expertise among the players. And once we had identified players who really were better at high fashion, we then empowered them with special roles so they could comment on how other people dressed. Ultima Online, an early precursor to World of Warcraft, offered many different earned roles to loyal players to help them police and manage their game world. We see the same thing going on now in League of Legends. How many of you are League of Legends players? Okay, a few. League of Legends has a similar approach where they empower their best players to be the first line of defense and customer support and actually mute and ban people. Talk about impact. So these 7 habits set the stage for breakthrough innovation. Of course, they don't guarantee success. That takes hard work, persistence, timing, and lots of luck. But what these habits will do is they will increase your chances of building something innovative that people actually want and need. Now let's switch gears. That was some high-level overview ideas. I hope that was inspiring. But I want to give you something practical and actionable that you can use today to turbocharge your customer discovery process. The first shortcut is the MVP Canvas, a one-page document similar to the business model canvas, but much more highly targeted at the needs of early-stage product development. First, you clarify your product strategy by forming hypotheses about your early customers' unmet needs, your solution, and value prop. You also identify your team's strengths, values, and passions, your unfair advantage, and you identify the early metrics that you will use to measure success during the various early product development and customer discovery. You then list and prioritize your most important and highest risk assumptions, and use that list to focus your prototyping and testing efforts. The second shortcut is the speed interview. This is part of our early adopter funnel shown here. It's a powerful technique for generating early product insights and excellent testing subjects. What you do, you don't do 1-hour interviews. You conduct 10, 15, maybe 20 5-minute interviews with potential early adopters who you can find and filter in a variety of ways. You ask just a few well-chosen, revealing questions that are designed to surface the needs, habits, and beliefs of true early adopters. Once these interviews are complete, you'll identify a handful of people who would make great testing subjects. They're vetted, and you already know something about them. And then you also get even better, actionable customer insights that you can infuse into your product design process. This is before you've designed or built a thing. The third shortcut is habit stories, a variation on job stories or jobs to be done. How many of you know what a job story is? Okay, well, I'm going to teach you. Job stories are an awesome shortcut. Habit stories, as I said, they're related. Their purpose is to help you harvest the most actionable product insights from your customer interviews and testing sessions. A habit story is a special type of job story, one that's built around your customer's existing habits and unmet needs. The form of a job story is when there's some trigger, I want to take some goal-oriented action so I can get some outcome I desire. That form you can use as a shortcut and as a replacement for scenarios, personas, all that stuff if you're in a hurry. And I got to tell you, all of my clients are in a hurry because I work with startups and there's never enough time. If you're looking for shortcuts to customer engagement and customer satisfaction, try piggybacking your product experience on top of an existing habit and solve a problem or unmet need that goes along with that habit. You can use these techniques or other ones you've heard of to discover what these habits and needs are. And if you do that, it will pay off richly in saving you time and money and increasing your chances of success. So let's look at how Covet Fashion, a hit and genre-defining mobile game, used these techniques to supercharge their early product development. This project came about because CrowdStar saw a market opportunity. Projects can come about because of an idea, a desire to build some tech, or if you're more strategic, really looking at a market. CrowdStar saw that there was an opportunity to integrate real-world fashion cycles and real-world fashion releases into a game. The initial product strategy involved letting fashion gamers play dress-up with real-world brands, and also getting advice from a celebrity stylist. And our first one was Rachel Zoe. You may have heard of her. Our initial vision was a free-to-play co-op mobile game tied to fashion trends and real-world events. We wanted to offer people essentially a replacement for Vogue, something beautiful and immersive to flip through and play that, as a result of you playing, would keep you up to date on fashion trends. Our unfair advantage was 1, extensive free-to-play experience, 2, an addressable audience and mailing list for testing and marketing the game. Our early metrics involved subjective responses and NPS score, drawn from our weekly interviews and testing sessions that I mentioned earlier. Our key assumption was the basic premise of blending real-world fashion cycles with a free-to-play mobile game. Would people be delighted by that? Would they be excited? We needed to know. We also wanted to understand the value add or not of a celebrity stylist. For the speed interviews, we spoke with young fashion-loving women, both gamers and non-gamers. We did interviews with phone screening, and we did paid testing as a follow-up in person. We completed the first round in 2 weeks, which gave us very useful customer insights and testing subjects for iterating our product. For these early sessions, we saw 3 key patterns emerge, and these corresponded to different ways people wanted to play the game. The first is we call the fashion browser, someone who loves staying up to date on fashion trends and wants to plop on the couch and immerse herself in the beautiful aspirational world of Vogue. We translated these research insights into design decisions by creating a habit story, shown here, around her existing habits and unmet needs. The second pattern we identified is the co-creator, someone who likes to dress, shop, and primp in co-op mode with a mom or sister or college roommate or buddy. Writing her habit story helped us see the need for a shared closet. That feature, which I originally designed, became a cornerstone of what made the game a hit and is one of the best loved and most used features in the game. The third pattern we identified is the armchair stylist, someone very opinionated about fashion, who loves to tell other people how to dress. Her habit story helped us get into the mindset of that wannabe stylist and helped us design our in-game rating system to empower, highlight, and delight specifically those people. So different features and systems in the game were designed around these different patterns, but holistically, all of them together created an ecosystem for the game that we felt made a strong foundation. We updated our MVP canvas after this research to reflect what we learned. Our hypotheses were largely confirmed, with our age targets being tweaked up a bit, because we discovered women in their 30s and 40s loved the game as much as the youngers, and those women had a lot more disposable income. The free-to-play game we'd envisioned looked like it could be a hit, and we saw specifically that the people we interviewed wanted to play all their games on tablets and smartphones, not on computers, which went along with CrowdStar's mobile focus. So we validated our initial assumptions, and then we generated new assumptions to test that would guide our next round of testing, particularly around whether people would actually pay for this. And that's how a solid start in low-fidelity, high-learning play testing helped CrowdStar create their biggest hit to date. Now that you see how all these ideas work together, I really encourage you to try them out for yourself. You can go to this URL, gettingtoalpha.com/shortcuts, and download all the templates that I just told you about. There's also explanatory videos there, and give it a try. See if it turbocharges your design process. If you want more and you're really ready to move fast, check out Getting to Alpha. That's an online coaching and design training program I created to help people just like you turbocharge your path to product market fit. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'd love to hear from you.